There's two factors, right? There's the popularity factor, but the thing about popularity is it changes over time. But then there's the time factor with classical music, where you have classical songs that have been around for multiple hundreds of years, 200-300 years. And there's something to be said about popularity for sure, but there's also something to be said about music that people still listen to hundreds of years later.
Hello and welcome. We are Bittersweet. We never know who is the bitter or the sweet one, but today we are discussing the topic: is pop music or classical music better? But before we start, Jonathan, are you feeling bitter or sweet today?
I'm feeling pretty sweet, especially after drinking this root beer.
Oh man, is that a sponsor?
No, it's
Okay,
just
that's too bad.
It's the Nutrition Facts Company.
I'm feeling sweet today as well. I feel pretty
That's good.
I had a good week.
Sweet.
A couple bitter days, not too bad.
All right,
Mostly sweet.
that's true. I guess.
Root beer's helping. What about for the topic? So today's topic is pop versus classical. So I'll be standing for pop.
And I'll be standing for classical, which is the best genre, and you guys are going to find out why in just a few minutes.
Okay. Now, I have to admit that I don't know if I'm bitter or sweet about taking the pop side, but I will stand for the sweet. I will stand that pop is the greatest. It's better than the classical.
On the other hand, classical is just good. There's only sweet about it.
Okay. That's a good start. I guess most people nowadays, they all just listen to the pop stuff. But you are the kind of guy that listens to the classical.
That's right. I mean, most people, there's two factors, right? There's the popularity factor, but the thing about popularity is it changes over time. But then there's the time factor with classical music, where you have classical songs that have been around for multiple hundreds of years, 200-300 years. And there's something to be said about popularity for sure, but there's also something to be said about music that people still listen to hundreds of years later.
Times later.
Exactly.
Yeah, so how much classical music would you say you listen to on a weekly basis?
On a weekly basis. I mean, it's not like I never listen to pop music. I listen to music that gets me going. Isn't always classical music, but music to study to for homework and for just anything you have to focus on. Classical is really good. And I think that another good point is that there's many studies that have shown that it's good for your brain and it helps you with your learning. And some have shown that pop music does the opposite.
Okay. So we've got some hard points hitting right now.
We do.
So wait, you were saying you listen to it for school, like when you're studying or something like that?
Yeah, I can listen to it for school, and since it doesn't have words, like music with words, it's hard to focus on while you're looking at words. But classical music, on the other hand, it doesn't usually have words, so It's kind of nice for that.
Okay, that's interesting, because for me, when I was thinking about listening to classical music, if you really want to get something out of it, if you really want to get something out of classical music, then you have to focus.
Right.
Would you say that's true?
No. I mean, you can get more out of it by focusing, but it's like classical music, sure, you probably do have to focus a little more to really enjoy
maybe understand it.
Some certain songs. Yeah, I mean,
understand it.
It's like pop music tries to grab your attention. It assumes that you have to be won over, but classical music, it's kind of a more dare I say, sophisticated people like to listen to it. People who want to put effort into it,
Okay.
But it's not like it's a song that isn't good or music that's not, interesting. It's just sometimes you have to kind of be a little more invested and a little bit more engaged to really fully appreciate it, like you said.
Okay, I'm going to bring up some of my points. Okay, so for my first point, I'd say pop is like popular now. And I feel like it will be the thing that's popular for a while, if not forever.
Sure. Okay.
So, and I think that the reason for that, here's a couple big words that I found on the internet to explain this. So the reason is, like, pop is rhythmically sophisticated.
Okay.
So you can make a pop song. It's kind of like math,
Yeah.
Which could be a good or bad thing.
Okay.
Because there's this equation, equals y, and it's like it always equals that. And if you put this equation together, you'll know that you'll be successful in a song. Like, for example, there are certain scales that work together, and the key has certain notes that work together well.
Yeah.
So I think that for pop music, or maybe just music in general, there's been humans as a species, we've found what works the best. And like, we know that this formula, this pop song is going to be awesome if we do it a certain way.
Sure.
Which is why it's lasted for so long. It's because we've advanced to a place where we can explode people's minds.
True.
With this creation of what works in our brains.
Okay. So you're saying that pop music is rhythmically sophisticated, and I assume you're implying that classical music is less so?
Well, I'd say pop music has more of a structure, a beginning and an end that will work for a song. Maybe some,
but most of the popular ones, like Moonlight Sonata, for example, it's very good, has an A-B section, and it repeats the parts, but with different keys, and it's not too unlike how pop music does it. It's a little different, but there are definitely distinct sections, an A section, B section, A section, B section, and a variety at the end, like most songs have. Like, for example, in Moonlight Sonata, the melody switches to the bass to the left hand, and so essentially it's kind of follows a similar song pattern in some ways. Sure. And you could also say it actually inspired the song patterns that we found nowadays, which you could say is kind of I don't know, like, it's like saying that the light bulb is great, but what about Thomas Edison, That's funny because I had like a similar sort of argument against that. Exactly what you're saying, almost. Oh, okay.
So like, if you look at classical music like a bike, so to speak, and then pop music is like the motorcycle,
Oh.
So it's like the old stuff versus the new stuff. And so the bike, you could probably do some different things with the bike, maybe go up in some mountains or something.
Yeah.
Crazy like that. But scientifically, the motorcycle is better, it has more machinery to it. It can go faster. It can get things done quicker.
I definitely can't argue that motorcycle is faster. So I guess my question is there anything that I guess I would have to be providing the argument that there's something that a bicycle can do that a motorcycle can't, easier in a bicycle, which I would say that basic, I don't know if this applies to music as much, but if you want a bicycle to get safely, if you want to go like the safest way to work, like an accident in a bicycle, you could, if a car hits you, it's bad, but like it's less common to get hit by a car on a bicycle than in a motorcycle. So maybe we can draw an analogy there that there are things that a bicycle can do, in fact, better than a motorcycle, even if for a lot of the modern things, motorcycle would be better, which I think is probably a fair point. For a lot of modern styles, pop music is not bad.
Yeah, where I was going with that is the technology of it all. You could argue that Mozart, if he lived today, he would probably he would either, I don't know if he would write the same stuff, like if somebody else wrote what he wrote.
Yeah,
like he would probably use the greatest technology that we have, like, I mean, whatever the Pro X, what is it called? GarageBand, but better.
Oh, okay,
version of it.
Pro Tools, right?
Yeah,
that one.
So, or whatever tools people use to create songs nowadays.
We do love GarageBand, though.
Yeah. So it's just like, we're at a point where we're trying to find the peak level of things that we can do. And maybe that they hit their peak that classical creators did. They hit their peak with what they could do with their orchestras. And then we're just a different type of that. And it's throughout time, things do get better. So
sure,
maybe that's not an argument towards like pop and classical. Maybe that's just an argument towards music. Like, there is better ways to create music and better music now just because of we've advanced.
That's true. So I agree with that. That as people go on, things can tend to get better. I wouldn't say they always do. Like, I don't think that our more modern
Some
music
songs still suck.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I think most songs on the radio right now, I'm not super big fan of. But
Okay.
slightly
Yeah.
more. Oh, all right. Well, slightly more recent music maybe was more engaging. But what I mean is that there's also something very real to be said for music that can last that long. That there are people that actually live today that listen to songs written in the 1600s.
Yeah.
So maybe I won't play it, but there's one called Canon in D that goes burn, 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 burn.
Right.
Burn. That you get it.
Yep, I
So
got it.
yeah, that one. And people play it at weddings a lot. People play it. You know when that song was written?
No.
I believe in the early 1600s.
Okay.
Sometime in the 1600s, I'm willing to say. So
Okay.
it's been a while.
Mm.
So if music keeps on advancing, why don't they use a more modern song at weddings?
Why do we keep going back to that?
Yeah, you could make the case that it's tradition, but people really care about their weddings, and if it was not a good song, they would not listen to it. So it's got to be some actual good music, and it actually has a purpose. So yeah, I guess that's kind of my argument is that the music, if it lasts a long time, there's a reason for it. And pop music, you can't really tell. I mean, you can go to hits from the 80s and the 70s, and it's kind of a similar concept. Like, what we still listen to tends to be the better stuff. And we can't tell, like you said, until more decades pass what out of
What
our
stayed.
modern stuff stayed.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
classical is like, we're talking long-term, things that have stayed for a long time.
Yeah, I guess what would be the connection to all those songs? Because I mean, nowadays, one good thing about pop is that the words are very prevalent. You know,
Mm-hmm,
the words
sure.
can be the melody, and the lyrics can be directly what this artist is trying to portray. That brings a connection to people right away.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing that I like about pop music is that you can find a song that is directly meaningful to you because of the lyrics, and that sticks with you and can even change you.
Mm-hmm. That is a good point. I guess I would probably say that, even though some classical music has lyrics, I'm really not personally quite as impressed by classical music lyrics in general than as in pop music, so I'll give you that one. But
Yes.
yeah, all right. What's the score? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So pop music, and that's also interesting to me. I guess it was kind of revolved around what trended, even though there were times when they had words. And I think the words were rather hymnal back then. A lot of the music, they were religious. They were, about things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And nowadays, it's not as much that way. Some, but I guess we've changed in that way. That's a good point. But back in the day, they wouldn't have actually considered that a very important thing. I think.
Yeah.
That's why it wasn't.
Yeah, I feel like there was a stage where lyrics became very meaningful, kind of like the emo stage.
Yeah.
The screamo stage, where people would just let out their emotions through song and words. And you can definitely say that there are certain feelings and emotions to classical music. Like, this will make you feel sad, and this will make you feel happy.
Right.
But yeah, there definitely is a more direct connection to the lyrics and the words nowadays. Yeah.
Yep, I would say so. I would agree. Lyrics in pop music are probably a bit better than lyrics in classical music. Most classical songs we listen to don't have lyrics. So yeah.
What's the lyrics in that one?
The one that goes, is that the one you're thinking of?
The one that goes.
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, that's
Bum bum.
nice.
I don't know. It's French, so it's hard to tell. I wish I could answer that better. Yeah, that's another thing. Most of the lyrics in classical music are not in English.
Maybe we should look it up.
It's also because classical composers weren't usually English. So
Okay, so now that I've said all what I need to about pop, I do have an argument for classical music.
Okay.
And that is music in movies.
Yeah. Well,
So, like we were saying, classical music has kind of, I guess people don't make it as much.
Yeah.
Pop has gone up in popularity. But very, very similar to classical music, is still created a lot in movies nowadays. So for example, like there's movies that they just choose pop songs and they put it together in their movie, and it works. It's pretty fun. It's a good movie. But if you get a movie that creates its own like score, and it's almost has that classical feel, like big violins and trumpets, and that can make you hit hard and really connect with the movie.
So you're giving me an argument that's pro-classical.
Yeah.
All right, well, I appreciate it. Should I try to debate that, or no, I'm just kidding.
I don't know. Maybe give me some pro pop for you.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, let's see. So a pro pop argument, playing the devil's advocate. I guess, like you said, I think the lyric thing is very important. That if it has lyrics, it will have a little more meaning. You'll know even more where the song comes from, and it's easier to sing instead of going bum 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 bum. You can actually say the lyrics. I guess that's one. In the way we're doing it, we're kind of overgeneralizing and probably grouping rock, rap, even jazz into that.
Some country.
Yeah, some country too, and maybe a little bit none. And then with classical, it's pretty much everything before, like in the 1800s or late or earlier. So. With the pop, we're gonna, since we live a lot more close to that era, I think we're definitely a lot more used to music that tends to be made in this time. Because people have listened so many times to classical songs because of how long they've been around, that I think some people might be a little bit tired of them. It's like you hear a good song and you're like, dang, that's good. But if you hear it enough times, it just stops being good, even if it's really good. So I think that's one thing in the favor of the pop music. Now I actually wanted to present one more classical music argument.
Okay.
That's pro-classical. So pop music, I assume, I'm not sure, but I feel like pop stands for popular, right? Music that's more popular, or maybe it's something else. I don't know.
I don't know. I've always thought it's like bop. Like a bop.
A bop?
Like boom, tsk, boom.
Okay. Well, I don't know about that, but maybe it is. Who knows? But I was going to say that classical music back in its day was pop, you know?
Yeah.
It was the thing. Like,
yeah, that's what I was actually researching, and they said that Mozart was the first pop star.
Right,
so
yeah.
I was going to bring that towards my argument, saying Mozart was basically a
pop star.
So I win.
Right, well, that's the thing, though. It's like, we're talking about, I guess you could even call it new pop and old pop. Like really old pop. It sounds like a bit of a stretch, but music in a few hundred years is going to be very different. And who knows what direction it'll go, but it's going to be very different from our music. And only the best of the best will last. So the old pop is not actually every song that was ever written in the classical music times. It's just the good songs.
Yeah.
So that's another thing to keep in mind. Like, And if people don't jam out to classical music, I guess it's kind of understandable. It's like any genre, except it's even more that way because it's so distinct because of when it was made. It's like that in the way that you hear what you're used to and you like that music. What you're familiar with, you tend to like. But if you haven't heard it as much, you aren't gonna, be as into it. Generally speaking, that's why I'm not as big of a fan as rap. But I do like musical raps like Hamilton and. That's the only one I've seen, but the only musical rap I've heard of. But so yeah, but
maybe we should do an episode where I convince you to like rap.
Well, yeah, that's gonna be interesting. Yeah.
What I was wondering is, if I had grown up listening to classical music, would I be able to write it very easily? Because I've grown up listening to pop music,
right?
And so I can put together a pop chorus or pop verse pretty fast, not easily. Like, it's not easy to make music,
right?
But since I've heard it throughout my life, I bet a lot of people around could sing a little tune to it and make their own melody,
right?
And make their own song. Like we've made a couple songs,
right?
So I wonder if I had grown up listening to classical music, like would I be able to do similar things in that way?
Yeah, I think definitely. Like, the music you listen to is what you're most familiar with, and it's usually what you like the most. And I think that might be true even if the music's like, I think it has to still have an objective, something good about a song in order to make people even want to listen to it at all. It can't just be nostalgia, I think. It has to be at least a little bit good in some way, whatever that means. When it comes to music, that's a bit of a hard thing to define, but most people can still know when it's a good song. But what I mean is, if it's a good song, I think whatever genre you're most used to is kind of like where you live. And how good the song is like how good the stuff is that you're living on. But you can live in a lot of different places. So you can listen to a lot of different genres of music. That's a bit of a wild metaphor.
I don't get it.
All right, fine. Maybe you guys get it. But anyway, you can listen to a bunch of different genres of music. And some will, if it's a good song, you're going to like it. But what you're used to, like you said,
True.
Answering the original question,
Good.
if you listen to classical music, yes, I think you would have an easier time writing classical style music, and vice versa. In fact, that's what, when we write songs, I think I do have more of a classical music vibe to my tunes. So.
Oh yeah. And I feel like theater vibe almost.
Oh, perhaps, yes.
Yeah.
And I have listened to musical. And Jerem, on the other hand, is more poppy, lyrical, and those kind of catchy, simple tunes. It's good.
Yeah. Cool.
Good talk.
Anything else to add to the conversation?
If you want to make me feel better, vote classical music in the comment.
He needs it.
Or if you want to make Jerem feel more
Even
secure,
better.
Even better, more secure about
Better
himself.
than I already do.
That's right. You can put pop or whatever if you want to lie to yourself.
I don't need it.
So this has been an episode of Bittersweet, and we'll catch you next time.
I still feel sweet at the end of this conversation.
So do I. So do I. More sure of classical music being good than ever.
All right. How should we sign off?
Like that.
I can't believe what you made me. It's bittersweet. What you made me is amazing, and I won't forget.